DeeJ, I had a question for you, and you sort of touched on this. You've talked a little bit about your history in the past, before you were an official community leader. You've been a clan leader, a fire team leader in lots of different games. For a solo player, someone who's playing solo queue or maybe just picked up Destiny, what advice do you have for someone who kind of wants to branch out, find someone to play with, find a group, join a clan, sort of experience that community aspect?
Mm-hmm. I would say that you should go to the place where you feel most comfortable. And you should have the confidence, just like in any social situation, to raise your hand and say, here's the thing I love to do. I'm looking for people to do it with me. And here is what I need help accomplishing. Now, fortunately, you're in luck because of all the communities that I've ever seen play online games, Destiny is the most patient, the most inclusive, the most welcoming, the most encouraging, the most collaborative community that I've ever seen. Now, it's easy for me to say that. It's easy for me to take credit for that as the community manager for Bungie, but it really has so much more to do with other people and their own contributions.
So we are so excited to talk about private matches. Derek, we have been dying to have you on just to talk about this new game mode because obviously everyone is just shaking with anticipation. So last week or 2 weeks ago, we talked about all these different ways to utilize them. Not just tournaments and stuff, but mentorship or practicing and just testing things out in the Crucible. What are you looking forward to seeing the community try, or anything that you might, look forward to see them inventing?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the cool thing about the community taking over this is I have no idea what people are going to do. Like you have this inkling of, oh, okay, so, obviously tournaments are there and, the hardcore people are going to be, basically doing their sweats and organizing that way. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have people who are just going to turn off their HUD and take screenshots and walk around and practice jumping and, doing that kind of solo experience, just messing around and maybe, doing some videos and stuff. But in between those two extremes, yeah, who knows? I mean, it's a bunch of Destiny kind of laid bare for people to try out and kind of find their own fun. And because we have, 12 people that you can invite into your private match, you can, do whatever people do. So it should be very interesting to see what comes out of that.
Definitely.
I'm looking forward to no HUD hide and seek. I think that's going to be a big one. Big tournament mode there. So I had a question about private matches. We've got all the maps to choose from. We've got all the modes to choose from. Can I play any mode on any map? I'm just thinking, could I play Rift on First Light or on Burning Shrine?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yes, any map, any mode. So if when we tested that, because we weren't sure if everything was going to work when we were, in development. So we did a game of elimination 6v6 on Bastion at night.
Oh, perfect.
I had to ask. Perfect.
Yeah, with vehicles turned on, with light, power advantages turned on. And that was insane. And it was a lot of fun. And that was kind of like, oh, okay, we're good. We can do this.
How long did it take to make it out of the first round?
Not long. I mean, we saw the tiebreaker.
With pikes involved?
Yeah. We saw the tiebreaker twice. But yeah, mostly it was a lot of people getting run down by interceptors, and just part of it is the disbelief that you're doing this. It's like, what? But then, yeah, and then kind of like, oh, I have to take into account, this new dimension of the sandbox. It was pretty crazy.
So not a lot of the maps are built for Rift. So you had to go back in and kind of figure out Rift spots, right?
Basically, in Destiny, all the maps are generally set up for every game type in terms of the assets are there and they'll import and it won't crash and things like that. In terms of being the best Rift map, less of a guarantee. But yeah, everything's laid out the way you'd expect it. And, you'll be able to play Rift with vehicles on all the vehicle maps if you want. Some people really love it. Some people not so much.
Yeah. I was thinking about Rift shifting from a sprint to sort of a marathon run, but being able to hop on a Sparrow and drive to the Rift point, that sounds okay. I get used to that.
Yeah.
I'm going to stand on someone's interceptor and let them drive me forward.
Yeah.
I'm just a turret.
if the interceptor isn't already parked on the drop off.
That's true.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Kaboom, kaboom, kaboom.
Oh, we got some stuff to figure out, I think.
But that's the magic. The thing I'm looking most forward to, when Derek says, there's somebody using a closed PvP map as their own personal soundstage to go in and take screenshots or to analyze different sniper lanes. It's going to be nice for people to slow the Crucible down just a little bit, to have their own practice session or their own soundstage for machinima or what have you. And then obviously on the other side of the spectrum is, the MLG game battle stuff that we're just starting to see come online, or the tradition that already exists in the community of the Sweats. In between there is where I've always lived and thrived as a gamer, which is casual meetups. Two clans come together to say, let's have a match. We'll pick we'll pick a match. You'll pick a match on the evening of. We'll all decide together to do a clash tiebreaker on a map that we agree to. So they would submit those things to each other. Best of 3. We would practice their CTF variant. They would practice our whatever variant, like rockets and vehicles or whatever. And then they come together and they say, okay, we know what we want to play. We know what you want to play. Let's see how this shakes out. And if we need the tiebreaker, we'll do it up and we'll do it fun. And Cosmo and I are talking about raising a team of killers here at Bungie and having a Bungie bounty be something that everyone can enjoy. Because we have traditionally, Bungie has always shared games with the community. And we've always said to the player, if you think you can beat Bungie at our own game, we're right over here. So come on over and see if you can kick our ass. And now we have emblems that we can pass out to people. But when Destiny came out, the only way for me to do that was to basically put a price on our own heads and go into matchmaking and see who could match against us.
I've heard the 1v1 me, bro. I don't think I ever expected to hear the 1v1 me, bro, come from DeeJ.
Yeah.
Check that off the bucket list.
1v1 me, bro. Although it would be more like 6v6 me, bro. I'm not about to go out there and start 1v1ing people from the community. But what I would like to do is to say, Peasant Guard has been issued a Bungie bounty, or Crucible Radio has been issued a Bungie bounty, because
let's go.
Our matchmaking has a regional bias. And when we've done a Bungie bounty, I've actually seen people enter the lobby who already have the prize-winning emblem. So really, the Bungie bounty, while it was a fun spectator thing and it was a fun thing to do on Twitch, aside from those matchmaking anomalies, it was pretty much a Pacific Northwest engagement, because we were deferring on the regional bias in the interest of connection quality. So, even though people think we don't do that, I have the evidence to the fact that we actually do favor connection quality enough that I've had to fight the same people in Bungie bounties over and over and over again. So now to be able to say to anybody on the planet, we'd like to meet you on the field of battle that we created and see if you can best us there, that's going to be something we're going to have a lot of fun with.
So last night, I actually ended up playing Control on Burning Shrine, and it was the first time I'd seen that in a while, and I got really excited, and I realized that now that's sort of what I can do all the time. So we know that there's certain maps and certain rotations, obviously with Rift, and there's the Iron Banner maps, so to speak. Are you guys interested in looking at private games, seeing how they develop, and would that possibly affect the playlists we see in standard matchmaking?
Sure, yeah. If we notice, we'll have the data from all these matches. If we notice that one mode and map combo comes up, 100% of the time, we would take a look and figure out why that is, and let that guide our actions.
Okay, Crucible Radio listeners, play Sky Shock Elimination as many times as possible so we can get it into trials.
Good luck with that.
So we've seen the new private matchmaking interface pretty much at length at this point. A lot of great YouTubers, great people going out to Gamescom, but not as much for actually selecting and loading into a private lobby. Can you talk a little bit about the process? Will I need to enter as a fire team with everyone who will be participating in the match, or can someone join in?
Yeah, we have join in progress. So, the way it is, it's a private match, and we call it that because it is your private match. And so only people who can join your fire team will be able to. So if you have your privacy settings to anybody, then theoretically anyone can join you. If you have it invite only, then that's how it'll be. So you can launch into the match solo if you want to, and then just wait for people to join in progress And will work. That will work. For tournaments and things, obviously, you'd want to wait till everybody's present. I'd probably argue about the settings a little bit, then launch it. And so when you select the private match node from the director in the Crucible, it basically just takes you to a special orbit screen that has that extra button on it that lets the fire team leader select the options.
Yeah.
Essentially, the fire team that you're in and the private lobby that you're in, those are going to be one-to-one. So everyone who's in the lobby is in the same fire team, and breaking up into teams from there is just sort of a switch within your one big fire team?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, there's a little right bumper, left bumper thing to switch teams.
And only the fire team leader is going to have control over those interface options. It's not going to be collaborative or combative, as the case might be.
Right. Everyone can see the options. You just roll over the name, like on any playlist. When you roll over the thing that says control or whatever, it'll show you what those options are. So same thing with private match. You get to pick which team you're on. So if you're flipping back and forth, someone will tell you to knock it off. Again, it's your friends, it's your fire team, so you should be able to, gently distract them into doing the right thing, probably.
Gently boot them from the fire team.
Yeah, they can be booted from the fire team for sure.
Most certainly.
Oh, good to know.
The guy who keeps delaying the countdown clock.
Yeah.
It's like one more time and you're out.
Yeah, that was your getting booted countdown.
Okay, so it's been very clear that these are private matches, not customs, so to speak. We're not playing Fiesta mode like the days of old. And we do get to control things like time of day and things like that, but we can't enforce just melee only or weapon bans or something like that. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about the decision process with that? What determined what features were able to be altered by the players?
So one of the things is Destiny is greater than the sum of its parts. It's a whole game, and if you start pulling out bits, it becomes less of a unique experience. And so, we're not super interested in playing a version of Destiny without super energy or without, heavy ammo or things like that. So those kinds of options add a ton of work and not a ton of benefit, in our opinion. I mean, There's certainly people will want to customize their experience down to the tiniest detail. And that kind of, interface and all the testing that goes along with it is very, very, very expensive, having done that sort of thing before in the past. So, we wanted to get the biggest bang for the buck. We wanted to get it out in front of players' hands and not wait years before we had this feature. So we wanted to kind of give you the full Destiny experience as much as we could under your control.
Mm-hmm. I like that because we talk to Noosk once in a while, and he always mentions how Destiny should feel the same no matter where you're going, because your guardian is your guardian. That's why you don't have a totally different use for shotguns in PvE versus PvP. And it sounds like private matches are still going to be a continuation of that universe. I'm still my guardian and nothing drastic has changed.
Yeah, and you're still going to get rewards too, right? I mean,
a little bit.
I've always liked, there's going to be weapon parts. There's going to be daily Crucible bounties. So with the reward system comes that living sandbox. I always liked the metaphor that when you start kicking design pillars out from underneath a structure, eventually that structure is going to cave in. So the fact that Destiny is this unified ecosystem has always been extremely important to us. That said, we've seen a bunch of gentlemen's and ladies' clauses where people wave off the heavy ammo. So we know that everybody's going to go in there and customize this experience on their own. People are going to say, let's not use certain components of the sandbox, and all of that is there for them to cultivate their own unique experience. We're giving the keys to the Crucible to y'all, and just like everything that you do in Destiny, we can see how you're playing. We can see what weapons you're equipping. We can see what maps you're choosing. We'll be able to tell, looking at the data, what is the most popular type of private match. So if everybody is playing Clash on Icarus, that will inform us as to the behavior of the player. Whereas, back in the day, as you said before, people could go off on their system link or on their, couch co-op, and we had no idea who those players were. We had no idea what they loved the most about the game because, something like PAX, something like an internet forum is going to acquaint you with a very important component of your community, but it's not everyone. Fortunately, we'll be able to tell what everyone is doing with these new features and learn from them.
That's awesome.
You kind of touched on it with the the rewards and such and get weapons parts. But we're a little curious about the other things. I know we can get rare rewards, and there's still stat tracking for things like Destiny Tracker. But what about weapon quests? First thing that came to mind for me was the Imprecation quest, and just sitting there and just like grinding away at that. And is that going to be something that you can complete in privates?
You can complete daily bounties, gunsmith, and
gunsmith weapon trials, daily crucible bounties, and I
want to say that's it.
That's it.
And
you can get green and blues. That was was on the party line at Gamescom.
Going into Rise of Iron, the one thing I need the most is armor materials. So you want to give me more armor materials, I'll take them. I wanted to come back to something that you touched on, sort of the informal rule sets that have developed for things like competitive play. You mentioned waving off heavy, for example, but looking at recent tournaments, the quote unquote official competitive rule set has gotten pretty big. So not just things like heavy, but things like only a single subclass per team, no subclass specific weapons. And these are things that are under debate. They evolve under time. But just sort of on a personal note, what do you think of these rule sets? I mean, are these a necessary component of competitive play? Do you personally have any interest in using them, or how does this fit in?
You can have my Tlaylock when you pull it from my cold dead fingers. Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I don't like doing a lot of special cases and special exceptions to the rules unless there's like a game-breaking bug. If there's something that makes it the only way you can play is to use this exploit, then obviously we should fix that. Mm-hmm. Things like, no heavy or, no exotic armor, because, for whatever reason, I don't agree with that in general. I would rather fix problems that make the sandbox, broken in quotes, big quotes, rather than just kind of do these blanket statements of saying, no, you can't use this or that.
And that's when I mentioned before that, to be a fly on the wall here at Bungie, these are the email discussions that I get to spy on. And that's how much these guys care about the sandbox and the state of the crucible and the competitive arena in the game. Is if it's so broken that we need a gentleman's clause, perhaps that's something that we should pay attention to. Perhaps that's something that we should fix. Yep. So they are designing a sandbox and in a game that can be played in a competitive environment that we want people to believe in. We want people to believe in what happens enough in Destiny to be curious about who's the best. And every single expression of Guardian power is something that really identifies and defines those characters. I love my heavy ammo. I love my belt-fed heavy machine gun. And if someone told me that to participate in a tournament that I couldn't use that stuff, I'd say, well, this tournament isn't for me.
I mean, I think you touch on an interesting thing. For a long time, the competitive scene has really just been focused around this one game mode of 3v3 skirmish. It's very fast-paced. And a lot of the rules, for better or worse, are definitely sort of oriented around the particulars of that particular game mode and the preferences of the small group of people who actually want to go through the rigmarole of trying to do matchmaking today. So I think I'm going to be excited to see just a big question mark put next to all of that when all of a sudden we have the ability to play things other than skirmish, and we can start bringing in other game modes and new people too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, the bar to entry is going to be much, much lower now, so that anybody can try it out. Anybody can do a 2v2, whatever game mode they want, and just, decide that that's how they want to play, and then, maybe invite their group into that. And maybe that catches fire. I don't know.
We do know that a lot of people are really gearing up to start hosting some tournaments because, this is what everyone's so excited for. And with the release of private matches, you guys also put out some limitations on things like prize pools and entry fees and, sensible things like that. What was the motivation there, and what kind of things can players expect if they're going to compete in a sort of official tournament?
Yeah, I think they should expect that they'll have full control over how that tournament is run, who gets to play. Like I said, we're handing the keys to the Crucible to you, and you can drive that vehicle at whatever experience you can envision, given the rule sets. In terms of the competition license that you can find up on help.bungie.net, that was basically just to create a baseline for interaction. I think that is our responsibility as a company that develops these systems, is to set some expectations for how players can interact with each other. At the same time, we're going to explore partnerships with different organizations. Game Battles and MLG have already announced their own tournament, and they're driving players to come to their website and register their teams. I think it's important that we create brightly lit avenues that people can travel so that they know what's going to happen and they're participating in a sanctioned event. I've been a member of too many communities where entities that people didn't know or really didn't have the ability to trust talked a good game about tournaments and accepted enrollment fees from everyone only to disappear before the first shot was fired. And I wanted to make sure that the Destiny community was a safe place to transact this sort of business between players. And like I said, I think it's our responsibility to do those sorts of things. That doesn't mean that that's the limitation, that that's the hard, fast ending of any possibilities. If we know people and we trust people and they have an idea for a great tournament, we'll certainly have that conversation with them. But we wanted to create something that was a little bit more cultivated than the Wild West.
Well, you might not have seen our press release, but we'll be in touch. We definitely want to throw a Crucible Radio themed tournament sometime in the future. But sort of thinking about the beginnings of a tournament culture, you mentioned MLG and Game Battles, some league play there, some tournaments as well. Kind of looking into your crystal ball, do you see a future where Bungie itself is going to be hosting, quote unquote, official Destiny tournaments and kind of being a venue for that competitive play?
Well, I actually dropped my crystal ball down the stairs when we were at Gamescom. So it's cracked in a bunch of different places and then it rolled through a muddy puddle. So it's seen better days. But, we've taken our first step into a larger world. And I think how that world takes shape is very much up to the player. So we're going to have an opportunity to study how many people adopt to this tournament culture as you're describing it. If you're going to call the shot, then you show us what that tournament culture is, because this isn't even in its infancy yet. It's still gestating, and the expected birth date is September 20th. And at that point, we'll go on studying the player of the game and seeing the way they behave and seeing what things turn them on and seeing how they spend their time.
I'm really looking forward to Supremacy. I didn't know what to think when we first read the article. And then as soon as that first game started at Gamescom, I was like, this is awesome. I think that looks really fun.
Yeah, I mean, objective games are hard. It's hard to get, especially in a pickup game, it's hard to get everybody to agree with, the plan. So anything that takes players away from shooting the bad guys is kind of a challenge for some players. And it's kind of the difference between like a really successful and well accepted game type and one that's a little more niche and a little more hardcore. And that's why, things like Control and Supremacy are great, because as long as you're shooting bad guys, you're doing the right thing.
I feel like Supremacy kind of, the way you just talked about it is perfect, because people are used to picking up engrams. So they're going to be like, ooh, shiny.
We do like those shiny things that drop when we kill things.
Right. And even though there is a subtle choice that you're making between, should I kill this guy or should I run over there and collect those 2 engrams, or the 2 crests? If you're thinking about it really tactically, there are choices to be made, but really, shooting the bad guys is still good news for your team. And hopefully someone else is backing you up and they can scoop up the points.
I'm really curious to see how Supremacy plays with different team sizes. I was trying to think through it, and I have to imagine that, going in as a team of 6 versus 6 versus, a team of 2 or 3 or 4, there's just going to be sort of a different set of incentives, maybe kind of a different pace to how it works for, the different encounters compared to just the constant onslaught of 6v6.
I'm curious, were there any game modes that you kind of experimented with for Destiny that sounded great on paper, but were actually really terrible in practice?
No, nothing I do is terrible. It's all gold.
Wow.
Wait, what? Oh, wait a minute. No.
Nicely done.
Yeah, no, it's, I write in pen. Never make mistake. No. I would say game development is full of dead ends and little failures and setbacks and things. And so I think the main thing is we don't spend a ton of time chasing down, kind of dead ends. So, you try something, hey, here's this idea, let's try it, put it in front of people, oh, that was terrible. Why would you ever do that? Usually, I mean, we have some experience doing this, so our ideas are generally not, utter flaming dumpster fires. So usually it's more of a case of, hey, that was a really cool idea, but it would be really expensive or time consuming or require some resource we don't have in order to polish that to a state that Bungie would be happy shipping. And so in the case of Destiny, what is great is maybe that featureable or that game type or that whatever it is will come out in a future expansion. Because we, in the past you would say, hey, that's not going to make this boxed game. And you might as well just forget about it because, we're going to start all over for the next game or something.
Or we could see it in like something like Crimson Doubles, like how that kind of showed up out of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're always incubating kind of new game types, new ideas, and kind of finding a home for them.
One thing that the community can really relate to also, if you've been around for long enough and paying attention the way you guys do, is it's been an interesting case study to see the evolution of Iron Banner. The first time Iron Banner shows up, we made all the right promises about Iron Banner. On paper, it was going to be a game type where your light truly mattered, where the champions from the raids would come in and dominate the Crucible. And basically, people's response to Iron Banner was, I couldn't tell if my light made any difference in here at all. And so we went back to the drawing board. We tried some different things with it. Mm-hmm. A couple of Iron Banners later, we actually took the Crucible design team and dragged them out on Twitch to say, all right, let's go. Let's see who has high light. Let's see who has low light. And we were giving the community very deliberate pieces of evidence to show that the feedback had been received. We went back to the paper we used to design Iron Banner, made some essential changes, and now Iron Banner is one of those hotly anticipated events month over month over month. The community can anticipate when the next Iron Banner is. If I haven't announced it, I'm starting to get the tweets right around the third week. When's Iron Banner coming back, man? And after that first Iron Banner, if you had told me that guy in the back of the tower standing in front of the flaming gong was going to be the main character in a future expansion, I would have said, no, man, Iron Banner is kind of a sore spot with the community right now. It's not likely that we're going to dress up this guy and make him the central figure of a future adventure. But the fact that, this thing, while great on paper, didn't execute perfectly the first time, they were committed to iterating on that. And they were committed to realizing the vision and the dream of Iron Banner through some pretty careful collaboration with the community and with each other. And now, Lord Saladin's the man.
I had a question about Trials. I mean, no surprise, Crucible Radio is a fan of the Trials of Osiris. And in our little group chat, we have a bit of speculation each week trying to guess what map we're going to see come out. So I guess this is a question for Derek. What qualities do you look for when you're deciding what maps to use in Trials? And sort of thinking back, have there been any kind of wild cards or surprises after we actually spend a weekend playing Trials on a map?
Yeah, I mean, so what I look for is it a Destiny map? Will it make people angry? Mainly, we try to avoid maps with doors and teleporters and man cannons and vehicles.
Trials on Sky Shock.
Well, that is an unanticipated benefit of private matches, is that I had to go back and make sure Trials worked on those maps, which it just wasn't set up. One of the original things was it was actually quite a bit of work to set up a new game type on the existing maps, and patching and the expense and size of the download and all that. So it wasn't set up on every map. But with Rise of Iron, Elimination, and the Trials cinematic stuff is on every map. So it could be anything now. So it probably won't, but it could be.
All right.
So I would say the map I was most surprised by was Cauldron. Seems like a perfectly symmetrical map, but it really isn't. And the timing of one team to the doors and to the middle is pretty off. And it just doesn't really make a good Trials map. There's a lot of sitting on one side of the door or another. There's just not as many play styles work with that map. And if you happen to get one side or the other, it's biased pretty badly. Although I would say the other surprise is that almost every time someone says that Alpha or Bravo has the advantage, the data shows the opposite to be true. So I'm not I'm not sure what it is. I mean, there's the difference between it feeling bad or like feeling like you have low ground and feeling like you're at a disadvantage. There's a big difference between that and, actually being at a disadvantage. So there's some interesting things hidden in the data there.
So you kind of touched on trials a little bit. I'm curious, overall, have the changes between year 1 trials mechanics and year 2 trials, boons, etc., been positive? It's still one of my favorite game modes. You don't have to reveal any secrets, but have you considered any changes to trials for Rise of Iron?
We are not changing a lot for trials for Rise of Iron. We obviously have new gear and new rewards and things like that. Basically, it's trials is trials. Hopefully we'll get some new surprises in there for you.
It will be dearly missed for the next few weeks after this weekend.
Yes.
Yeah, but you got a new adventure to embark on, and you've got some new gear to grab, and you've got a new raid to fight. And we want Trials to have its own moment in the sun. It's an important weekly ritual, and it's not every week we get to launch a brand new expansion. So it'll be back, and it'll occupy its own special space.
It's actually very necessary for me, because if I have the temptation of Trials, then I can't do my PvE. And being on Crucible Radio, they don't let us do PvE.
No,
we're not supposed to play.
That's the rule.
And I'm like, I got stories and raids to do this week. I can't be bothered.
No PvE for you. Also, to build on what Derek said, the nice thing about Rise of Iron is we're building it on top of the stable foundation that we see Destiny occupying right now. Again, to your earlier point about sort of dialing in a lot of aspects of the player experience. If you think about the things that we were talking about this time last year in advance of Taken King, we were talking about Destiny 2.0. We were talking about the questification. We were talking about very deliberate things that could get you access to very specific rewards. Those were all new concepts for Destiny. And even after the follow-up in the April update, Destiny is in a place now where I think most Guardians would say that it rewards the time that you spend in the game. You can anticipate the ways that you can become more powerful. There are different ways to do that. Even solo players don't feel shut out in the cold, and they can achieve max light. So this puts us in a situation where we've got a good world where players can spend their time. Now what we have to do is we have to provide more things to do there. And one thing we have said about Trials of Osiris is it's the game type you know and love, but we've got a whole new suite of gear for you guys to go in and get. And you love strutting through the tower looking like a Trials of Osiris badass.
Fashion over function.
Or both.
Why not both?
Functionably fashionable.
There you go. A heraldic space knight is what Pete Parsons is fond of saying most often.
Ooh.
I also like to look uniquely terrible, like when we got all the chroma.
Oh my.
I've gone to such
helmet.
lengths to find the ugliest combination of things I could put together, but just having so many new options, especially with ornaments, they look amazing. Like just seeing all the different ways you can color Hawkmoon, different materials you can use on the new armors. Tell us a little bit. We've seen the Vidocs, we've seen the reveals, but for you guys personally, what's the best looking stuff? What's your favorite armor set? What are some of your favorite ornaments? What should people be on the lookout for if they want to look fly or terrible?
Well, there are 3 different armor sets that accept the ornaments. So you can ornament your Trials set, your Iron Banner set, and your Raid set. In terms of what to be on the lookout for, man, that's the experience of being a Guardian. That's the player experience of playing Destiny is going out into the wild frontier, doing badass stuff, making things explode, fighting for your life with your fire team, and be on the lookout for special rewards that will make you look awesome. So we've shown everything that we can show about ornaments before the game launches. And we've said everything that we can say about it. But you're going to have a lot of fun tricking out your character. You've got a lot of options. Chroma is still around. We've got ornaments now. So there are, as time marches on, more and more and more ways for Destiny to be a creative expression as to who you think is the ultimate badass, as much as it is giving you new and fun ways to explore and to blow stuff up.
There you have it. From Bungie, from Crucible Radio, the best way to win is to look good. And it's honestly one of the reasons this game is my most played game by a long shot. But guys, thank you so much for coming on. DeeJ, for making everything sound so beautiful and getting us hype as if I couldn't have built up more hype for myself already. and Derek for working on the things that the three of us and all of our listeners spend so much time with. We are all hardcore Destiny folk. We play every aspect of this game, but obviously we feel like the Crucible is a special place, and you've done a lot of work to make that an extremely special space. So thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Thank you, man.
Absolutely, guys. And we'll be watching. So good luck in your efforts to spin up that tournament culture. Do us proud and inspire us to make it even better over time.
You heard him, folks.